All right, party people, in this video, we are moving on with InDesign to talk about two things. So one, I want to talk to you about frames, and two, I want to talk to you about text. Two different elements that kind of get used here in InDesign. So you should have a flat white document to start. And I want you to do a couple things. So first, we're going to get our text tool and we're going to create a text box. So I'm going to go down here and I'm just going to create, I'm actually going to go like the width of the document. I'm going to create a text box. I'm going to right click on it, and like we learned before, I'm going to go fill with placeholder text. So when I go fill with placeholder text, again, it fills it with some random text, which is cool, which is great. Love to see it. Now, I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to get my selection tool. Notice when I do, the sides of the box appeared with a lot of information here, right? So I want to kind of talk about these little bits and what they mean. Before I do, I'm actually going to go and create two more frames. So I'm going to go to my rectangle tool over here, and I'm going to do what's called making a rectangle frame. So I'm going to go all the way up here. I'm going to go mostly the width across, not the full width across. You can see I make my rectangle. And I'm going to go click on my rectangle frame tool, and I'm going to create my rectangle frame. I'm going to click my selection tool just so I can point out some stuff. So I've clicked off of everything, so nothing has little borders on it. And I want you to see the differences between these. So the most simple one is going to be this rectangle. You can see it's got a little dot each of the corners, and then it's got two additional dots. So one over here and one up here. Obviously, these are dots to just change, and you can see as I hover over them, I can just change the size of it. So if you've ever changed a text box, that's how you change a text box. Hooray. This one, if I click on it, you'll see that it also has those same dots, right? So all the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dots, and then 2 extra ones. One thing that you might not see, right? If I'm clicking in the middle of this square, look what happens. If I click in the middle of this square, it is selected. If I click in this one, nothing happens. That's because InDesign only thinks that it only knows that this part exists, right? So if you want to select a frame, you have to select the outside of the frame and not the inside of the frame, or else you're clicking off of the thing itself. If I want to move these boxes around, I can also use my selection tool. So I can click on the frame, move it to a place, hooray, right? I can do with any of these boxes, moving them different places, and it works like a charm. Great. What I want to show you is that this box down here has extra things on it, right? So if I zoom in, and I showed you guys how to do this before, in the corner, you'll notice that there is one box up here and then another box down here. So it's got two boxes in the top left corner, and then two boxes in the bottom right corner, right? So I'm going to zoom out so we can just see the whole box at once. And I am going to get my selection tool. I want you to deform your box to about a third of where it was. So it's just like a skinny little box like that. Now notice what has happened. If I select my box, you can see I've got a red little box down here. The box at the bottom right is turned red. This one is still clear. This bottom right box means that the interface is trying to put more text out. That like some text is being cut off. And if I just click on this box, you can see it's grabbed all of that text that was cut off. I don't want to put it anywhere now because I don't have anywhere to put it. You can also see at the bottom of the interface here, one error, right? And if I wanted to go through my pre-flight panel and see what is the error, it's a text error, overset text, a text frame. And if I click on this, it will show me where that overset text is. So if you had a book and you had just like a bunch of text for hundreds and hundreds of pages, this error bar would show me this error, which is cool. So let's say then I want a column here, and I want the text to go from here all the way through and to wrap through the document. Let's say even that I'll just create a new one. I'm going to create a new text box, and I'm going to, actually I'll just create a new regular box. I'm going to get funky with it. So I'm going to use my rectangle tool, and again I'm just going to create a normal little box next in the space that I had taken out. I am then going to go, because I don't want to create another rectangle, back to my selection tool, so much selection tooling, click on my text box, and I'm going to get that text out of here. So if I click on this X, just one click, I'm not double clicking, just one click. And if I go now and click it into this box, it has now filled that box with this text, right? So, and if I were to increase the size of this box, you can see it changes this box because less text is flowing in there. We still have the same, we have instead of a red X there, you can see we have like a little tiny triangle, which means this text is being sent somewhere. Similarly, up here, if I click on this text box, you see I also have an arrow, text is coming in. So that's just an important thing to know, I think, in terms of text boxes, where it goes, how to use them, and to know that if your text box is too small, the text will get cut off. A big, big difference from Microsoft Word. You want to make sure your text isn't being cut off. Now, one of the big things to remember as well is do not click on the direct selection. I'm going to talk about the direct selection tool in another video, but just know that these frames are movable, right? So I can click and drag this frame so I can move it to another place, but it is still wrapping from this frame to this frame, which is what you're looking for. From there, I think one of the other things you might want to know, let's see if this works. If I click on this box up here, so again, I've got my selection tool on, and I go over to Properties, you will notice I get a couple of different options here. I could fill it, I could stroke it, we'll talk about that in a future video. But the one I want you to see is here, it's called Text Wrap. So basically when I select this box, I'm saying, how do I want text to work when it interacts with this element? So I'm going to click Text Wrap, and I'm going to say 0. If I drag this box now, so it overlaps with this, you can see the text is moved out of the way, that it knows that it needs to wrap when this element is over it, right? If I did no wrap, you can see it just goes right through. With the text wrap, it gets shoved over to the side. I can also adjust here and say how much of a text wrap I'm looking for. So let's say I want more space on this right side because I want less space below. First, I'm going to unlink these 4 properties because if I do them now, you'll see they're all working together. I don't want that at all. So I'm going to unlink them, and then I'm going to do more space on the right side. You can see that little space popping out there. And then it already knows that I want less space below, so it gave me less space below. So if you ever want an image to wrap with text, you can see here that's how you do it. You turn on these functions. If you don't want it to, and you want the text to go behind it, you would just go behind. All right, couple of final things here. And I'm going to wrap up this here video. Woo! Let's say I just want to create a 3-column design, right? So I am actually going to, let's go through and let's just delete both of these. So I'm going to delete this, and I want to get back to just having a big text box at the bottom, and it's filled with lorem ipsum text. So big text box, lorem ipsum, get to this point. Now let's say I just wanted to evenly divide this into 3 columns. I want you guys to use the magic function, which is Control B. Now there's a lot of different ways to get to these functions, but Control B I think is the easiest way to get there. They are going to be the layout options. So if I hit Control B, I get what are text frame options here. All 3 of these, the columns, the spacing, and the justification are all super important. But here I just care about columns. So let's say I've got this and I want to create 3 columns at the bottom. I can go from 1 column to 3 columns. I don't have my preview on. Turn my preview on. Look, it made a nice 3-column design. They're equidistant. It even put a gutter in the middle. If I wanted to increase that gutter, you can see I can increase that gutter. I can also decrease that gutter along the lines. One thing you can see though is that I have extra space at the bottom here, and that means that the columns aren't necessarily balanced, right? So they go all the way down, they're just filling as far as they can. But if I wanted them to all to end about the same place, I could do balanced columns. And what that's going to do is it didn't do very much there because I've got too much text, but it would basically like make them all about level if you had them equal distant. So, indeed. All right, final thing I want to do is I want to show you guys how to edit just like a bit of text by itself and make it big, make it small, make it colored, etc. So got this box at the top, and remember, it is not a text box, so I do have to click on it. I can get my text tool, and when I click in this box now, you can see the cursor blinking. It is now a text box. I'm going to put my title in, which is Bam Jam Thank You Ma'am. I don't know if ma'am has an apostrophe. I do not care. So I've got it here, and if I were to highlight my text, I've got all of my options over here. So you might have your options at the top, you might have your options on the side. I can use them just like I would Microsoft Word, making it a little bit bigger. I can also make it bold. I have to make it bold in here. Oh, it does not have a bold. Here's our first lesson. Some typefaces don't have a bold. So you can't just hit a bold key. You have to make sure you select a typeface that has a bold in it. So let's say I go on the way down to Palatino Linotype. This one has a bold and italic and a regular, so I can bold it that way. So clicking off, you can see I've got my nice title. I also have other, if you're used to kerning, spacing, those types of things, but the main ones are going to be the size of it, which is that one, and then your bold and your typeface itself. If I want to change the color of it, I'm actually going to go up here to fill. I'm going to double click, or I'm going to click on the middle, and you can see I've got all of these fill options, right? So for right now, I just want you to select one of the pre-decided ones. I'm going to click on a nice Kelly green. You can see it did change. If I click off of it, it has now turned green. Wow, surprise, hooray. The one thing that you might need to do, or you will need to do, though, is that this needs to be centered within this box, right? I don't want it to be at the top. I want it to be in the center. Centering it horizontally, easy, right? I'm going to go over here, going to hit center. Great. It is now in the center, just like you mentor, the phrase we all say every day. But if I want to center it vertically, I'm going to click into my text box, and I'm going to do that Control B again. And I've just got my cursor in there, Control B or Command B, and you'll get these text frame options. So remember back to this thing where I made the columns. Now I'm going to go down here to the bottom, vertical justification. Instead of top, I'm going to go center. And you can see now I have centered my text within the box. So that's almost all for you. I'm not going to talk about color, I'm not going to talk about images in this one. We're going to talk about that in the next tutorial. But the big things I want you to know are, how do you put text in? How do you affect the frame? How do text frames move from one to another? How to know the difference between those frames. I have one final lesson for you, and that is this. Let's say I don't want to see all of these frames. You can imagine it builds up over time, right? There's a lot of stuff. If I have nothing selected, and I hit the W key, watch what happens as soon as I hit W. It is what we call a print preview. So all of the frames are gone. I can still highlight. They're still there behind the thing. But I at least can see what the image is going to look like once it is printed out. So I'm going to W again. I can see my frames once again. If you want to do that the easier way, you can see, I can do my view options or something to that nature. I have not used this in so long. Just use the W key because I have had enough. So use the W key when you do not want to see any more frames. Do not worry about saving this. Hopefully this was helpful in just how do you use frames, how do you put in text, all that good stuff. So until the next video, I'll see you then.